So to illustrate the difference between operational effectiveness and strategic positioning, here's a little framework that I find quite helpful, a little graph. What we have here is on one axis cost going from high to low, and on this axis we have differentiation. For right now, let's think about it as anything that makes your customer happy. Maybe the service level or the quality of your product, going from low to high. Now, we can think about operational effectiveness as getting closer to this frontier, or maybe even pushing out this frontier. Whereas strategic positioning is really where on this frontier do we want to end up. And so what we've seen in a number of industries is the following phenomenon, where we have a number of firms, and what do? They start looking at each other and they start copying each other's best practices, right? And we have a firm that says, oh look, this firm here has a certain practice that allows them to lower their cost, let's copy that. Ooh, this firm has a certain feature that customers like or that increases the quality of their product, let's copy that. And so what we have is we have a set of firms that improve, that both lower their costs and increase their quality and increase their service level, and they all end up on the same spot on this frontier. That's a problem, right? That is this problem of strategic convergence. So even though these firms are now sort of at this possibility frontier, they're still not making profits. So this possibility frontier, right, one way to think about this is that is really the state of best practices. So if this is the cost that you want to incur, this would be really the highest quality level that you could squeeze out of that cost position. Or conversely, if this is the quality level that you want to provide to your customer, right, this would be lowest cost at which you could currently do so. But as this shows, even being on the frontier doesn't guarantee us high profitability, because if everyone else is on the same spot on the frontier, we're still not making any profits. So here comes, in some sense, our first insight. Right? If we want to create some competitive advantage, we need to find a somewhat different spot on this frontier. If we are just worrying about getting to the frontier, but if we all end up on the same spot, we haven't really gained much. So what does it mean to have a different point on this frontier? Really what it means is that the underlying set of activities is somewhat different. Now the second thing that this frontier I think nicely illustrates is this idea about trade-offs. Particularly once you're on the frontier, right? Once we are here and we say, look, we would like to raise our quality level, well, that probably will mean that we have to also increase our costs. And if our costs increase, maybe our prices go up. Likewise, if we say, oh, we want to lower our cost if we're here, well, that may mean that we have to also lower our willingness to pay. Maybe there are certain features we can't offer. And so this will be a common theme we'll come back to again and again, that really the essence of strategy is making choices, is engaging in these trade-offs. Now lastly, you might say, well, Nikolai, but this is a rather static picture, right? Couldn't I be a firm that sort of creates and sustains competitive advantage by being the firm that pushes out this frontier faster than everyone else? And I would say yes. I mean, conceptually, that's quite reasonable, but practically, that's quite difficult to do. And now what's even more difficult is the following. Now imagine you are a firm that sits here, and you have a couple of your competitors that sit right behind you. And you come up with a new practice that allows you to push out this frontier. The problem is this particular practice is also valuable to all of your competitors because they have the same positioning. As a result, they have a very high incentive to figure out what it was you just did that allowed you to push out that frontier. And again, there are enough best practice consultants out there, there's enough turnover among firms that those types of advantages tend to be pretty fleeting. They tend to be fairly short-lived. Of course, if we can get them, let's get them. But this is probably going to be a very hard way to sustain a competitive advantage for a long time. So what is the implication of this? Well, let's go back to the Airport bookstore one more time, right? And we look again at some of those strategy books. Quite often, strategy is portrayed as this race to this one ideal position in the market. As if like all the firms need to race to this one position and who gets there first is the winner. To me, this is actually a fairly destructive view of strategy. Because if we're all racing to that same spot, it is not completely clear how much benefits there actually are, even if we get there first, because others will probably catch up with us pretty quickly. So I would much rather think about strategy as the creation of something different, involving a different set of activities, finding a different location. And that is why it is so important to think about both strategic positioning of where do we want to end up, and not just about operational effectiveness of how to get closer to this frontier.